Hit me.
From Studio A in Arcata, behind the redwood curtain, it's time for...
Succotash.
Succotash Clips, the original Comedy Soundcast featuring snippets from comedy...
Soundcasts.
And here's your host from up the coast, practically unknown outside of comedy soundcasting, Comedy Soundcast Soundcaster, Tyson Saner.
Saluton, estas me, Tyson Saner, your host and extremely anxious new father for the duration of this episode of Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast. I'm writing this late at night, and probably recording it during the daytime, depending on whether or not I'm stage whispering or speaking at a more comfortable, easy volume. Thank you for listening. In addition to clips, I've got other special content for you. I've received submissions, ladies and otherwise, and I couldn't be happier about that, but you may not be able to tell through my stage whisper. Or perhaps I'll be at a comfortable volume and that joke won't land the right way. Maybe I won't read this line, and it will still be on the blog at www.succotashshow.com as an Easter egg. Well, I have to read it now. Anyway, let me take you on a journey through our menu of items tonight. We've got a double dose of Raging Moderate Will Durst Burst a Durst segment. We've got another reading from our wonderful fake sponsor, TrumPoetry.com, which is a 100% real website that I'm sure will be linked somewhere here because it's awesome. It's a brilliant and eloquent achievement of what poetry is supposed to do for people who read it and write it when times are uncertain, or more certain, or less certain. It's supposed to put that in perspective. And occasionally, it's supposed to remind us that 2 plus 2 is indeed 4, even if some folks want you to not only believe, but state openly that it is 5. That's what I suppose, but I am no expert. I'm going to list the clips purely for presentation order here, and then I'll explain a couple things after that, presumably. I've got clips from Dylan Brody's Neighbor's Couch Revisited, the Rad Dudecast, the Slashfilmcast, Not a Huge Fan, and Hotboxin with Mike Tyson. Okay, so I've been using the Laughable app a lot lately because I really don't have as much time to hunt for sounds around the internet as I used to, and it makes it easier for me to find the specific content that I look for, which in this case is Comedy Soundcasts. It has featured comedians of the day, and if I search for a specific comedian, it will show me a list of podcasts that the comedian is associated with in some fashion. In other words, host, guest, producer, spokesmodel. Anyway, it's a useful tool. 3 of the soundcasts you hear clips from tonight were found with the help of the Laughable app. 2 of our clipped segments feature those submissions I mentioned before, and I'm very grateful for. Let me say a thank you up here at the top of the show to Darren Staley and Dylan Brody of Dylan Brody's Neighbor's Couch Revisited, and Charles Disney of Not a Huge Fan for their submitted contributions. I will explain more as we go. Before the clippage, it's our first Burst o' Durst for the program. From March 24th, 2019, Mueller strikes out, in which our intrepid correspondent muddies the water by tossing out a few archaic bromides about the Mueller report.
Hey guys, Will Durst here with a few choice words about the Mueller report. And those words are, it's a big swing and a miss. The mighty Mueller has struck out. The special counsel's investigations have been filed and reportedly found no conspiracy between Donald Trump's campaign and the Russians, which has caused Republicans to toast each other with champagne and cigars, while Democrats have wilted like freshly cut lilies placed in the back window of a Mustang convertible at the Wisconsin State Fair the entire second week of August. We have witnessed a series of historical disappointments in our lifetime where the build-up far exceeds the actual event, like the comic Cahutek, George McGovern, Michael Jordan as a baseball player, Interview with a Vampire the Play, Al Capone's Vault, The Jetpack, Howard the Duck, Star Wars Episode 1, Theranos, Season 2 of True Detective, The Galaxy 7, Ryan Leaf, Google Glass, and my comedy career. But this event is destined to take an honored position at the top of that list. Robert Mueller himself said this probe is not an exoneration of Trump's possible obstruction of justice, but no one's really sure what's in the report. Trump's new Attorney General, William Barr, doesn't look like he's inclined to release any of it except a few heavily redacted prepositions and maybe a random conjunction, patting Congress on the head and saying, "Oh, don't worry, nothing to see here, just move along." But it's doubtful House Democrats are going to go gentle into that good night. Meanwhile, the president is so happy he's dancing little pirouettes of joy, chanting, "No collusion, total vindication," like a parrot with Tourette's syndrome. He's also changed his tune on the special counsel, "Honorable man, great American." Wouldn't be surprised if he invites Robert Mueller down to Mar-a-Lago for a golf excursion. Of course, he'd probably still cheat. For Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, I'm Will Durst.
Okay, let's dig into the Soundcast clip section.
Right? Right.
Recently, myself and former host, now executive producer Marc were guests on Dylan Brody's Neighbors Couch Revisited, a podcast about a podcast, as it calls itself. It's hosted by longtime podcast personalities Darren Staley and comedian Dylan Brody, whose names would be familiar to longtime listeners to Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, as well as anyone who just heard me mention them in the introduction that I wrote after having written everything before the sentence up to the word recently. Now, Darren Staley, who is Krobama on Twitter, using our Hightail upload link, sent along 2 classic clips from Dylan Brody's Neighbor's Couch, a podcast he has resurrected, hence the revisited part of the title. I'm going to play these back to back with a small break between for setup purposes. In the first clip, Dylan Brody and Greg Shoemaker had a falling out years ago, which leads to a great discussion of comedic responsibility in a sensitive world, and your humble host is deemed unhelpful to the exchange.
At the same time that those of us who are hyper-conscious of language that we might find offensive need to be careful about how we approach people about language that we find offensive. I think we, as people who sometimes get corrected on our language, and I can give you an example of this, need to be open to the idea that we are already working from our own unconscious biases, and sometimes we need to adjust our language because we are suddenly informed it's being perceived other than how we intended.
And that's also vice versa. It's how you're seeing a performance is also, you have been informed in a certain way and accepted certain mores and standards and so on. So you're also seeing it through your own lens and maybe even a sensitive lens to these things, which I have always said. I had a big discussion, 5 hours with my friend the other day. 5 hours where it got very, very heavy. And I've always believed that sometimes these are projections of things we don't want to see in ourselves. And maybe we used to be like that, or maybe we have thought these things. And that's what I've always believed, that we're all one on the planet. And sometimes we don't like our own reflection.
There was a joke I had to change in my act. And there are comics who argue with me on this because I changed it from a funnier joke to a better joke. And there are comics who don't believe that that is possible.
I absolutely believe that. And sometimes, you doing that might have lit something inside of me that I didn't see. Again, comics shine the light. And it's your choice whether you're going to see it. And maybe, I don't remember the jokes in particular, but maybe I did change something. When you are hearing, when people's intent is to assist you and help you and not call you out or shame you, that's the intent that's important, I think.
I think I was just a dick that day. I don't think my intent was at all clear. I think my intent was just fuck everybody. I wasn't on stage, someone else was. I hate that.
If I could jump in briefly, Craig thought your intent was being a dick too. Carry on.
Good. As long as we're all on the same page about my dick.
How do you know that? Did I tell you that?
No, you didn't tell me that.
Oh, you're reading my mind now. Okay, all right. Okay, I didn't know that was the podcast, was the mind-reading podcast.
All right, in the second clip, Kelly Carlin talks about when Twitter, circa 2012, was a time when you could talk to any random celebrity and say, hey, you want to chat with a random guy on a thing called a podcast over the phone? And they would just say, sure. Kinda the Wild West of celebrity interviews on a podcast. Now, having listened to the episodes that you've heard clipped here, I was delighted to remember those conversations through hearing these specific clips again. So thank you, Darren Staley and Dylan Brody, and thanks to our executive producer, Marc for setting up the introduction with myself and the folks at Dylan Brody's Neighbor's Couch Revisited.
Back at the time, I'd only known Kelly through Twitter, and probably not even for a year. Probably just, I think it was about 5 or 6 months in, maybe close to a year, when I came up with the idea for the podcast that was inspired by Dylan. You did know Dylan at that time pretty well. And I'm just kind of wondering, do you have any memories, Kelly, of the time, like, what in the hell are Dylan and this Crobama person doing here? There's a couch, and now all of a sudden Phil Rosenthal is here, and did you ever think what were your initial kind of thoughts? Were you like, what the hell is this? Or
it was so interesting because during those early Twitter years when it was still a magical kingdom, and there was a lot of kind of interesting magic happening in my life because of the people I was meeting via Twitter and even Facebook. But it was like this, it's like this whole world had opened up to me. And so there was this level of like literal magic that would happen. And you were part of that early crowd, and we would all hang out late nights on Twitter, and it really felt like we were sitting in a room together, just shooting the shit. And I just saw it as another like vortex in this wild space where we could talk to anybody, any celebrity, any hero, anybody, and sometimes it clicked, sometimes it didn't. And I know that, our relationship was very special at the beginning because we were talking about panic attacks and agoraphobia and all that kind of stuff. And I know, it was just part of that thing. And so when it happened, it was, part of it was like, what the hell's going on? And the other part was, and it makes perfect sense.
Wow. Yeah. It's so crazy. I was thinking about this on the ride home from work today. Now that I have a real job, it makes me almost want to throw up. But I had a memory today. Ed Begley Jr. was on the podcast, and which was crazy massive for what it was. And he was telling me, like, just in a regular, just like this was something that I could make happen in 5 minutes. He said, and of course, this is in a different context now because we know some things we didn't know at the time. But he said, who you should have on your podcast? And I was like, he said, Kevin Spacey. He does great impressions. You should give him you should give Kevin Spacey a call. Because he's so much fun. And I was like, dude, I don't even know what the fuck you're doing on here. And now you think I'm going to just pick up the phone and call Kevin Spacey? So it was just such, like you said, just such a crazy time, a crazy moment. And that's kind of, the Revisited podcast is just kind of looking back on that moment and how, Dylan and I talked about this. Paul and I talked about this. Twitter was just something for a little circle of us.
All right. And here's that clip of Marc Hershon and myself as guests on Dylan Brody's Neighbor's Couch Revisited as promised, from the episode posted March 29th, 2019, entitled Dylan Succotash.
Let's go ahead and bring in Tyson Saner, who is the current host of Succotash. How did... we talked about this. We usually talk about Tyson off air. So even though Marc has told me this story off air, how did you come into the Succotash world? And were you briefed on the couch that didn't exist when you did come on before you came on?
Honestly, I was not briefed about the couch. I had not heard about it except on the clips on the show, I believe. How I started intersecting with Succotash is that I was doing some video clips for YouTube for a show called Combat Radio, and Combat Radio gave Succotash a shout out on a show and and mentioned Marc Hershon. In fact, actually, Marc Hershon had been a guest on Succotash. On Combat Radio at some point. So I said, yeah, you should check out the show, and I thought, yeah, I'll do that. And so I went to iTunes, and there had been quite a few episodes by that point, but I started listening from the beginning because that's what I do when I come across a new podcast. Usually, that's what I used to do anyway. And I just I don't know. There were maybe there had to be like 50 up by that point or something, or pretty close to it, I feel like. And so I just started listening to them. I had the time, and I really enjoyed it. And then I noticed that occasionally Mr. Hershon, Marc, would would say that not very many people are submitting clips, but people were submitting clips certainly. They're just and that kind of thing. And I thought, well, shoot, I listen to other podcasts or soundcasts as Succotash started calling them eventually. Why don't I do that? So I think I sent in 2 at first or something, just because they were available from 2 different shows that I was listening to. I think one probably was Nooner over on the Kevin Smith's Smodcast Internet Radio, and I don't remember what the other one was. Might have been Tell 'em Steve Dave or one of the other shows that was on there on that network. It feels like that's probably what it was. And
I think you're right. I'd like to claim it was Waking from the American Dream.
It
could have been podcast that I always support when I can.
Kelly Carlins, I actually had her on as a guest, and we're sort of friends now, and played clips a number of times from her show. Love that show.
It's a great show, and she was a great guest on. I had heard her on Kevin's morning show. Other than that, it was I don't remember which, probably the Smod Coast morning show or something like that, or maybe it was Plus One per diem at the time. That show is now not really in production, but she came through there, and she was fantastic. I loved listening to her. Heard she was going to have a podcast, so I did start listening to those early ones. Wow, I do run my mouth when encouraged to, don't I? I'm at peace with that, however, because speaking is a plus on Soundcasts, and I need the practice, clearly. So if you would like to have me as a guest on your Soundcast, you have a taste of what it would be like. Thank you again to Darren Staley for sending those clips. There is one small thing, and I hate to mention it. In the episode description of Dylan Succotash, in which the audio of myself going on and on can be heard, it lists me as Tyler Saner. It's interesting because, according to my parents, I was very nearly a Tyler, but it was not to be. Anyway, it's no biggie, and it gave me the opportunity to talk about my parents for a second, so that's cool. Next up, the Rad Dudecast by Anthony DeVito, Brendan Eyre, and Greg Stone. Its description reads, a comedy podcast featuring New York stand-up comedians and best friends Anthony DeVito, Brendan Eyre, and Greg Stone. The Rad Dudecast is part wild improv and part off-the-rails comedy writer's room. Is it satire? Is it parody? Or is it the only true thing you've ever heard? How do jokes form? What makes something funny? Find out on the Rad Dudecast. Recorded at Remember to Be Happy Studios in Brooklyn. And you can get bonus episodes by going to the Patreon, which I'll mention later. The clip is from episode 220, entitled It's Racially Enhanced. It was released April 2nd, 2019, in which Greg got a new character from Scotland, and the boys break down how to podcast, and Brendan talks about his album recording.
Let's clearly out, Brendan. Give us a new topic to talk about.
Well, Brendan was going to talk about his
why don't you
morning...
continue talking about Jews? Go ahead.
Why are you yelling at me? I was only half on board.
You were going to talk to us about morning news.
Oh, yeah, so...
Morning snooze.
I always find... That's hurtful.
What?
You're morning snooze. You call my story a snooze.
No, I'm calling the morning news a morning
Yeah,
snooze.
that was more an attack.
I like an action movie. I like to wake up to Rampage with The Rock.
So, I find...
I watch it every morning.
I always find when you do promotional radio, even if the guys are annoying, even if they're annoying, they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Like, even when they suck and it's boring, they know to set you up to be funny. Mm-hmm. I never find that often. Very rarely is that case with the news. Like, I've only done the news, I think, like 5 times. Mm-hmm. Most clubs don't have you do the news anymore. Mm-hmm. But, like, I think I've done it like 5 times. And the news guys, they're not used to dealing with comedians, so they don't give you space to be funny, and they don't fucking play off anything. And so this guy was Frank was just cutting me off, like just asking me these questions about where I grew up, but like then immediately cutting me off, so I couldn't be funny. So then I said I was trying to lighten the mood because their bathroom was broken, and I really had to pee, and I go, Frank, I gotta be honest, your bathroom's broken. I've never had to pee this badly on live television, which is not that funny.
No, that's correct.
But lighten it up a little bit. Let's get the subject matter onto something. Let's get this a little weird, Frank. You know what I mean? And then Frank doesn't even crack a smile and just looks at me for a second, then goes, "Do you often find that when you're performing comedy, the audience has to get up to urinate?" And just looks at me.
Ice King right there.
The Ice King.
That guy's
and I
the
go,
king of the ice.
I go, Frank.
Given's the
I go,
ice.
yeah, but not any more than any other comedian. I don't know what you're trying to say. Like, I don't know what kind of dig this is.
I'm a pee-related comedian.
Yeah, they do, but I don't know what you're trying to insinuate. But yeah, just the normal fucking amount.
Yeah, equal.
You dick.
Equal.
Like, yeah,
Equal.
We were selling drinks there. Yeah, they pee, but they come back.
Stone people like to take a big old deuce. My crowd, 15 minutes through, they take big shits.
The whole crowd.
And I do an interval.
Yeah, Greg does a shit break.
I do an interval.
One of his
I do a
sets.
compere. It's French for interval. Compere. Compere. I learned French in Scotland too. One guy.
Really?
I don't know. What's your name?
Brendan.
Great. I'm not breaking character the whole podcast.
That's fine.
All right.
Yeah, man.
That's who I am now. And you must accept me.
I do.
Open arms. I'm into it.
Yeah. Now,
I like
It also makes me talk less because I have to think about it.
Right.
So I think that helps the podcast.
What can you tell us a little something about what? Give us a little rundown on what you did in Scotland.
Oi. Did a lot. Went to a bunch of action figure stores. I went to this place. They have a lot of toy stores there. I bought a Professor Xavier. Some guy, we have to shout out to Widmit Minky. Matt came to the show. Wid Winky on
Sounds
Instagram.
accurate. Yeah, sounds like we'll definitely get him some followers. Widmit Minky, Matt, Winky, Wat.
Matt came to the store. He real Scottish lad, like actual Scotland lad. He came to the show and he goes, I came to see Rad Dudecast, big fan. I said, great. He brought me 2 comic books. And he goes, I don't know anything about comic books. So I just picked any 2. And he gave me 2 random comic books. One Luke Cage, great. One The Origin of Wolverine's Son. Nobody gives a shit. But I was so happy that he went, I just popped into a comic book store, picked anything, gave it to me. He goes, hope it's worth money. And I went, and I go to him, I go, what do you, he came, 3-piece suit, looking great. Vest, beautiful shirt. Great pants, got his Greek girlfriend, and I go, you look great. He goes, these are my fancies. And I was like, I love your fancies. He goes, usually I look a little, I'm in my fancies for the Rad Dudecast. I'm a forester. He cut down trees. I go, you get a little action in there. And he goes, aye, fuck a squirrel, fuck a bear, fuck my wife, who cares? Half of that story was made up. You could pick which one.
Well, Rand
Paul?
Rand Barnacle in Cincinnati. He's already got a place set up to take you. He said there's a guy at the flea market.
Ooh.
He's got every Marvel legend there ever was, plus just a giant bin full of spare parts, and then another giant bin full of every Build-A-Figure part ever made. And he goes, I'm taking Greg there already. I said, don't bother. He's already got it.
I'll tell you this. I have every Marvel legend ever made. But the spare parts turns me on. Yeah. I could use a couple extra hands, a couple of arms.
Yeah.
That's what I like. Make my own custom 6-figure, 6-arm man.
Now you can find that Patreon at patreon.com/Rad Dudecast. That is RADDUDECAST. The show can be reached on Twitter and Instagram at the Rad Dudecast, which is THERADDUDECAST. Anthony DeVito can be reached at ANTHONY, DE, VITO_. Greg Stone can be reached at GREGSTONE_. Brendan Eyre can be reached at AirBud. And you can find the Rad Dudecast on Libsyn at theraddudecast.libsyn.com. And Libsyn again is LIBSYN.com. All right, in the number 3 position. Now here's a soundcast I was happy to be reminded of. It's called the Slashfilmcast, which is actually styled on iTunes as capital THE and then a / and then a capital FILMCAST. Then in parentheses it says AKA the Slashfilmcast, where it's written out as a capital SLASH and then Filmcast, all smushed together, by David Chen, Devindra Hardawar, and Jeff Kanata. Now, Jeff Kanata was on a video podcast that also had an audio component. That was my introduction to podcasting as far as something to regularly listen to in an area that I enjoyed. It was called The Totally Rad Show. He was co-hosted with Alex Albrecht and Dan Trachtenberg. The show is defunct, but you can still find episodes if you just Google it. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, in the description of the Slashfilmcast, it says, the Slashfilmcast is the official podcast of Slashfilm.com. In the Slashfilmcast, hardcore geeks, bloggers, and journalists David Chen, Devindra Hardawar, and Jeff Kanata debate, pontificate, and delve into the latest films, film news, television shows, and entertainment-related items from the past week. Weekly guests include everyday bloggers, webmaster luminaries, and movie stars from all walks of life. This clip is from episode 511. It's the Matrix 20th Anniversary Retrospective. Wow. And their guest is David Sims from The Atlantic. The episode was released April 2nd, 2019. And in its description it says, it's been 2 decades since audiences chose the red pill and entered the science fiction world of The Matrix. The cast is joined by David Sims, film critic for The Atlantic, and co-host of Blank Check podcast, to chase the white rabbit and discuss The Matrix's lasting impact on film culture today. Read David Sims' writing in The Atlantic on why a movie like The Matrix might never be made again, Marc Harris's piece in Vulture on how The Matrix built our reality-denying world, and Emily Sandalwood's article in Vox on how the film influenced her own trans experience.
Huge fan, very influential movie, obviously. And coming back to it, I'll just give like 2 to 3 high-level thoughts about my reactions. Number 1, this movie gave so much to the culture, right? There are so many moments in this movie. There's so many moments that have become memes, right? So many elements of the style, right? From the styles, obviously, but also like the martial arts.
The classic definition of meme. You use that term now, and I think it has a lot of baggage on it. It was a meme in the sense that it lodged into the brains of human culture, and not in the sense that people forwarded it around and went LOL at it.
No, but I would say it's both, Jeff. I mean, there's many memes based on the Matrix, right? There's literally like, what if I told you blank, blank, blank? Like, if you go to like meme generator or whatever, there's several things on there that are screenshots from the Matrix, like the Morpheus meme, Neo going whoa, Switch saying not like this. I mean, there's like so many moments that people have like repeated on social media decades later, and so it's both that it was like it lodged into the memory, but also that like literally it has become memes, and I think that's a testament to how memorable so many of the moments are. The other thing is, it's interesting to look back at this as the kind of one vision of the future of AI, right? And we just saw, like, Ex Machina was a movie that came out a couple years ago, which also expressed kind of fears of AI. But this movie, which came out roughly around the time when I think many of us were still using dial-up modems at home, and like I remember when I got to college and getting like a DSL line, that was amazing, right? I was like, I've never experienced internet this fast.
Yeah, this was pre-broadband for most.
This is pre-broadband, right? And so the fear that people had of AI and technology came in the form of machines like the Terminator, right? It was like we imagined that it would be like it's not like networked AI that's going to take down our power grid or anything. It's like literally physical devices that we're going to have to go to war against. Yeah.
It's also, by the way, it's kind of interesting seeing this vision of evil robots versus the Terminator, right? Because even Terminator 2, the idea of a global, network that we're all plugged into, and that is, the veil in front of reality, that would have been, you couldn't even understand that back then. Like, you needed the internet. You needed the concept of the internet to even explain a movie like The Matrix and what they were trying to say.
Yeah.
But I also feel like The Matrix, rewatching it now, it feels like it could have been written today.
Oh, yeah.
It would it would actually be more relevant, because we're sort of dealing with that fear manifest. People are actually writing articles about how, maybe all this AI stuff that the big tech companies are working on is maybe we should pump the brakes on some of that.
Guys, people are talking about hacking the simulation of reality right now. Like I was at South by Southwest. George Hotz, Geo Hotz, a hacker famous for cracking the iPhone and the PlayStation 3, I believe. He had a whole panel where he's just like, "Hey guys, I think we're gonna try to crack reality. Let's see where it goes." And this is the thing people are talking about. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, Elon Musk is saying that the probability of us actually living in a matrix is high. People actually believe that's a possibility for real life.
It's a metaphor that has utility in almost any. That's why it's so good. It's like in this movie and in the sequels, they sort of talk about it as like, well, do you feel depressed or like disconnected from reality? Well, the reason is that you're actually sitting in a pod and the reality is fake and only you've realized that. But then like you guys are saying, you can use it now to be like, does reality itself seem like it's out of whack? Like, do things like feel like they're happening in ways that are just like fully implausible? Like maybe it's just the simulation is sort of like run out of scenarios and is lobbing anything at Canada. It's like it's such a broad and useful metaphor for anything, which is one reason I feel like it became so lodged in the culture.
Even just the throwaway line about deja vu is so powerful and has it's such a enduring idea that's a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, there's a subreddit called "Glitch in the Matrix." It is a thing that people repeat. This is what I'm talking about, memes, Jeff. Like it has become part of the meme culture as well. The Vulture did like a massive multi-article spread on the Matrix in February. And the cover story was "The Matrix Built Our Reality-Denying World," the movie that gave all of us a new way to see or reject everything, written by Marc Harris. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's a great article, and it basically asserts what you guys have been saying, that we live in a world where the President of the United States is a conspiracy theorist, right? Like,
I have to say, by the way, like that's a great piece. I really enjoy Marc Harris's writing. Plato is like, I'm right here. I've been here for thousands of years. What are you talking
about? Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, we live in a world where like our president's conspiracy theorists, where like people talk about fake news, and where there's like so many ways readily offered to reject reality. And the Matrix kind of feels like it foretold the modern era of doing that. So, anyway.
And Vindra mentioned specifically the people who are most passionate about rejecting reality and finding conspiracy theories use the blue and red pill as their central metaphor for that.
Yeah. I mean, while totally missing the point of everything, but
yeah exactly.
It is.
It's an Ouroboros, it's eating its own tail.
Yeah. I mean, it is tragically ironic that, this movie, which is created by two trans women, and I think I was reading on Vox that it's like probably the most well-known and successful piece of art created by transgender people has been kind of co-opted in that way. And many people read The Matrix, in fact, as a allegory for coming out as transgender. We're not going to get into that allegory too much on this podcast because I don't know that we're super well-versed or equipped to do so, but that is like kind of part of the culture of this film, is like that allegory and how really despicable forces have co-opted it. So it is a shame, but we can appreciate the movie as it was intended.
You can reach out to the show on Twitter at /Slashfilmcast. That is at SLASHFILMCAST. David Sims can be reached at David L. Sims, DAVIDLSIMS. David Chen at Dave Chensky, which is DAVECHENSKY. Devindra Hardawar at capital DEVINDRA. Jeff Kanata at JEFFCANNATA. You can email the /Filmcast at /filmcast@gmail.com. And you can find all their podcast episodes at www.slashfilm.com.
This episode of Succotash is sponsored in part by TrumPoetry.com, a chronological ode to a fake muse. Enjoy a rhyming spin on the news of the day every day, as well as over 500 archived daily verses thoroughly covering the White House, America, and the world with a sticky caramel coating that's impossible to remove. That's TRUMPoetry.com. Everything you need to know in rhyming couplets. TrumPoetry.com.
Yes, our fake sponsor, TrumpPoetry.com. So our two selections for the program are short, and they are from days that were back-to-back, starting with April 1st, 2019, number 660. Oh no, here it is, April 1st. The timing is really the worst. While surrounded by goons, half-wits, and buffoons, it is for the wise fool that I thirst. And then from April 2nd of 2019, number 659. Disaster relief's on the shelf. Thanks, McConnell, you fetid old elf. You find money for tanks, Israel, and the banks, but America can't help itself.
Right? Right.
All right, in the number 4 position, It is Not a Huge Fan by Charles Disney. So yes, we got a clip from Charles Disney, a stand-up comedian who hosts Not a Huge Fan. Yes, Charles Disney submitted his show through our Hightail site with a little note that says, "Hello, our podcast, Not a Huge Fan, is not categorized under comedy, but I'm a stand-up comic, and we have a number of comedian guests, so sometimes it is funny." Attached is a clip from a popular episode from the end of last year. Thank you for supporting other podcasts. Sincerely, Charles. And thank you, Charles, for supporting this podcast, or Soundcast, with your contribution. For your information, his program is under Society and Culture. And his iTunes description reads, "Be the first to know what's trending in pop culture and in the minds of Hollywood-obsessed youngsters with everyone's favorite entertainment news and talk show. Not a Huge Fan. Hot goss boss Isaac Simpson joins forces with celebrity dish Dr. Charles Disney to scoop steamy Hollywood gossip, dirty dark secrets, and hot takes on hot topics, all combined in a sleek infotainment package you and your friends won't be able to stop listening to. Your celeb experts chit-chat about everything from relationships to who's in rehab this week and more." I don't know what episode this clip is from.
I was reflecting with some solemnity about the events of September 11th.
Oh boy, I know where this is going.
And one thing that really helped me through it was the incredibly good writing about September 11th.
Amazing.
That was taking place
I love when people post about
social
9/11.
media.
Yeah, just let me try and drum up some likes.
Really meaningful.
Right.
Isaac, please. Why are you suggesting that these
What are you talking about?
posts aren't sincere?
These people are selfless.
Yeah.
They took the time to reflect on our long national nightmare.
Let me read some of these to you.
Yes.
I think you'll find them as moving as I did. Here's one. "I'm chronically late everywhere. I get it from my dad. He is never on time to anything. He used to take the path to World Trade Center every day and walk to work. On September 11th, 2001, he made it to work by 8:45 a.m. 8 blocks down the road from World Trade Center. The lights flickered as he placed his newspaper on his desk. The nightmare of that day began. I'm glad he wasn't running late that day. I'm glad he made it home 12 hours later, covered in ashes of the city. I'm sorry for anyone whose families didn't make it home that day. My point is, go call your families. Hashtag never forget."
Oh, my Lord.
My point is, go call your families
touched by that.
when I begin the story by saying, I'm chronically late everywhere. Because this story is really about me.
I don't even understand what happened. Was he late or not late?
He was on time that day, right?
Yes,
I get the implication he was on time, but he was always late on other days.
Well, but wouldn't it have been
But also,
better? Would it have been better if he wouldn't have gotten there? I'm glad he's late because I'm glad he's dead
No,
now.
the key here is how far away from the World Trade Center he worked. Doesn't it say in
8
that?
blocks.
8 full blocks.
So what the fuck difference would it make if he was late?
None. Zero.
So what does lateness have to do with
nothing?
This entire...
Again, it's to include this person in the story.
Listen, that was a very moving piece.
No, that's
I'd like to hear another one.
It's like, let me justify, writing this, beautiful paragraph that, evokes never forget. Let me get that hashtag in there just so people really, maybe some other
Isaac,
people
they're
see
writing
that.
it out of selflessness to share their experiences,
I think
not
it's
to
really
get social
touching.
media likes.
This brings Americans together.
Here's another one.
Can you be patriotic for a minute?
So this person took a picture of their little son at the Ground Zero Memorial, and they posted, "He wasn't even born when it happened. But whenever we visit New York, we come here. Hashtag never forget." Yeah, it's no. I don't know why you're laughing. It's upsetting.
No,
I
you're
mean,
right.
I just don't know what's more sadder: the fact that people are so blind to their ridiculous need for social media attention, or the fact that people are so desperate to like cling to anything meaningful that has ever happened because we just don't have that shit anymore, that they're just like willing to get all emotional about this. Like,
Well,
thing
don't
that
you think
happened so long ago.
people just want to be part of a narrative?
I mean,
you
it's just
know?
like, think about people in the Middle East where it's like 9/11 happens just like weekly. You know what I mean? Like, and they're like sitting here being like, this thing happened so long ago for 5 seconds, so far away from most of you. And, you know, you're just still like trying to grind whatever meaning you can out of it because like your lives are so vapid and meaningless, you know?
Right. They just go to, you know, Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah, right.
I disagree with you
stuff.
guys. I think these are really sincere.
Okay.
And then this is,
I
think this is
Facebook is
the best
place.
one.
the most touching
the most touching
one.
Okay.
And I think this will turn you guys onto my side. I cried all night, and I called in sick the next day after actual 9/11, so I could keep crying. Many Angelinos couldn't relate to my distress because New York City was more of an idea to them than a real place. I looked at the World Trade Center every day for 6 years.
My Lord.
I worked
Please,
a couple of temp
please
jobs
stop.
in the World Trade Center
This is
in
the worst thing I've ever
1998
heard.
and 1999. My coworkers from the third floor probably made it. The ones on the 99th floor with the spectacular view of the Statue of Liberty did not. Sometimes, wait, this is where
I'm upset. I'm crying.
this is where it
Somebody
all
get me
gets
some
pulled together.
Kleenex.
Wait. Sometimes on my lunch break, I would lay on the ground between the towers to look up between them. It gave me the sensation of infinity. Time would stop, and my heart would leap from my chest to shoot up into the heavens.
Oh, is there a hashtag? That's the end.
Wow.
That's the end of the podcast. What?
Shouldn't be hurting people.
Oh, nice. Look, I don't want to sit here and be such crass assholes that we're like, you know, just giggling at these ridiculous fools on Facebook
I
who
do.
are trying to generate some self-attention from this horrible event. It's just like, I do get kind of like tingles from hearing these things, but it's like, I shouldn't.
Those are douche chills.
It's douche chills. It's like unfair frisson. It's like, stop. You shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Right.
That one was so pathetic because it was like, I other people don't get it, but I really
I do
get
because
it.
I was not there, but
I was a temp
was
in
there before,
1998.
yeah. I was a temp in 98.
and I knew all about
And
it.
I knew
worked in the
everything
building.
about it.
All right. You can reach Charles Disney on Twitter at Funzaroni, which is Funzaroni. Isaac Simpson does not appear to be on Twitter, but if you go to isaacsimpson.com, that is ISAACSIMPSON.com, you will definitely find him because he's the only Isaac Simpson at isaacsimpson.com, and you will find links to Not a Huge Fan as well. That's how I was able to confirm this. And you can also find Not a Huge Fan at nahf.podbean.com or at funzaroni.com. And once again, Funzaroni is FUNZARONI.com. And our final clip for the evening is from Hotboxin with Mike Tyson by Mike Tyson. Its description reads, listen as the baddest man on the planet pours his soul into conversations with fascinating minds, celebrities, and athletes in a studio full of smoke. Along with his cosmic millennial sidekick, former NFLer Eben Britton, Kid Dynamite dives deep into the issues impacting us all today. This show will change the way you see the world. That's a great description. The clip is from an episode featuring Joey Diaz, released March 5th, 2019, and its description says, outrageous comedian and actor Joey Diaz from The Longest Yard and The Degenerates on Netflix stops by Tyson Ranch for this hilarious episode of Hotboxin with Iron Mike and Big Eb. Or is it Big Eb or Big Ebe? Eben? Big Ebe? Big Eb? Big Ebe? Not sure. I'm sure somebody will tell me at some point in the future. In this laugh-out-loud episode, the fellas dive into growing up in New York City, making the most out of life behind bars, and how good it feels to be here to tell the tale. Be sure to check out Joey Diaz's podcast, The Church of What's Happening Now. Yes, and I've definitely clipped that on Succotash before. Perhaps not during my tenure as host, but fairly recently. Has to be within the last 2 years.
I was born in New York in '87. St. Vincent's. Lived in Brooklyn Park Slope.
Brooklyn, where? Atlantic
Slope.
Avenue?
We were on 12th Street between 8th Avenue and Prospect Park.
I know that place.
I was already gone. I was doing time.
Wow.
In 87.
Wow.
No, 87 was when I got in trouble.
Everybody was doing
88.
time in 87 and 80. In the 80s, everybody was locked up.
Hey, man, you know, you make mistakes. And
everybody was locked up.
And the funny thing is, Monday I posted the picture of the guy I kidnapped in 1987. He came to my show this past weekend in Tucson.
Wow.
I've been in touch with him for about 5 years. I apologized to him like a man. It was a drug rip, Mike. It was he had 2 kilos of coke, and I was young. I was stupid, you know, and I made a mistake. And with another guy, and we fucked up. And I did, you know, he didn't even testify, Mike. He didn't even testify. The other guy, my partner in it, testified against me. And then I plea bargained to 0 to 6. The judge gave me 4 with and Cordy told me to fucking come back in 120 days. And if I behaved myself, he reduced my sentence, and they cut it to community corrections. And that's the hardest thing I went through. Prison ain't hard. It's at community corrections. That's how they hang you. Because you can't do
Make
shit.
one mistake.
You can't be in a bar. Your life is 6 to 6. You know, basically you have to live under a strict life. And even then, like I said, I was.
And if your friend's a felon, he better walk right by you. He better not slap you
can't
5.
talk to him. You can't.
Yeah, you better not say, "Hey, man, I'm glad to
commiserate.
see you." You better just walk right by you.
It's a hard life at that point. But you know what, man? I did it. I paid my debt to society. You know, I got divorced. I fucking lost everything. I started again. And the only thing that I could think of was comedy. And I just wanted to be a regular comedian. I wanted to hide. And I ended up in Los Angeles. And the next thing you know, I was like Richard Gere in Office and a Gentleman. I had nowhere else to go. Yeah. Mitzi Shore, God rest his soul, gave me spots. Then a dude, Joe Rogan, he came into my life. And he taught me how to be a professional, you know. And here we are, 27 motherfucking years later. Comedy saved my life.
Amazing. You ever think about doing residencies in like Vegas or anything?
I just did Treasure Island Friday, and
awesome.
It was tremendous. I really liked them. I did the South Point before. They were very nice also. But it's time to, you know, move on up a little bit. I'm 56. I got 1 foot in the grave, 1 a banana peel. And I got a lot of life left in me, dog. I got a lot of life left in me. So I still do my little every 2 weeks on the road. I got the podcast. I got the kids. I got to talk to you about something real quick. I taped my kid. You know, I'm Cuban, and Cubans are very proud of their boxers. So I taped my kid hitting the mitts, and I sent it to my uncle. He's 80. And my uncle came back. He goes, "You tell that fucking teacher of hers that we're distant cousins of Kid Chocolate."
Yeah.
Right? So I know that part of your fucking genius is that you watched a lot of tape. There ain't nobody that can tell you a story about a fight.
His name is Eligio Sardinas.
Sardinia, compadre. Sardinia, you know what Sardinia means in Spanish?
It's a Spanish name, but that's from Spain.
Yeah,
right?
Sardinia means, what are those things that you eat in prison? Sardines.
Yeah.
So Sardinia, yeah. Kid Chocolate, Sardinia. When you're in New York, and I lived in Union City, is the second biggest Cuban population in the country. A big shout out to Lucio Fernandez. And before you got into a fight when you were Cuban, the first thing you told the motherfuckers, listen, before we box, I just want you to know, my cousin's Kid Chocolate.
Really? Are you serious?
No, but it's a fucking island. We're all cousins. I did the 23andMe. I'm 40% African. What the fuck?
But I'm just saying that the fact that he was that popular, Kid Chocolate, really,
he was that popular.
Yeah, I remember. I watched a lot of films about him. That's why I knew his name.
How good was he?
He was magnificent.
Did he really fight 25 times in 1 year?
I wouldn't doubt it. Listen, he had 100 amateur fights in Cuba, and he was undefeated with like 85 knockouts.
Is that true? They said they redid it. The historian went in, and he only had 50 knockouts.
Let me tell you something about Kid Chocolate.
Drop it on me. I'm fucking
Let me tell you
excited.
something about Kid Chocolate. Some things are not something. Kid Chocolate was very promiscuous, you know, and he fought he had a lot of disease, like venereal diseases and stuff. I believe that's how he got sick and stuff. He got sick from venereal diseases and stuff. These are the legends that I read and stuff. And I saw pictures of him. I believe it was what year was it? It was something happened at the I watched it on television, and I think after I'm gonna look on YouTube and see they showed pictures of him in Cuba like in the 80s, like in 84, 88, something to that effect. And he was just an old, broken down man, but he was a magnificent fighter. He was so inspirational for fighters like Archie Moore, Henry Armstrong, because when they saw him fight, he was he made more money than the heavyweights. He made like $100,000 a fight in one particular fight or something like that. And that's why he was so popular. Everybody just loved him. They made songs. Which was going to make songs about him. Count Basie did songs about Kid Chocolate and stuff. He was just a magnificent sensation when he came to America.
He moved to New York, and
he was awesome. He was from Panama, Al Brown, and all those guys. He was just magnificent. It's just that he had got sick.
Did you watch a lot of tape on him and
I
study
watched
him?
everything that he got. I watched him fight Fidel Barber. I watched him fight all those guys that he had. He was a magnificent fighter, man. He fought Tony Candelario. He fought all these guys. He had probably 150 fights, pro fights. Great fighter, very sensational fighter, very popular fighter, one of the most popular fighters. And they had people name themselves after him too.
Right.
Such a Kid Chocolate, Big Chocolate, this and that.
Sardinians.
Awesome fun. When he came to when Castro took over, he was a very wealthy guy, Kid Chocolate, but he took everything.
And he died in Cuba, correct?
Yeah.
Castro took everything?
He was wealthy. Yeah, he had money. And Castro took all the property and all the cash out of the bank. They were communists, so I guess that was basically...
They had to shut it down.
Yeah.
It's funny how many venereal diseases, when Columbus went to Cuba, he brought back, like he took something, then he went back, and what they brought back was sugar and syphilis.
Yeah, the rumors were that
Cuba was a big syphilis fucking hotbed.
Interesting.
I tested hot for syphilis a few times. No biggie. I moved on. Fuck it.
Done all right?
No, I'm doing all right.
I ain't never catch no fucking syphilis.
You can reach out to the show on Twitter at Hotboxin Podcast. That is HOTBOXIN PODCAST. Joey Diaz can be reached on Twitter at MadFlavor. That is MADFLAVOR. Eben or Eben Britton can be reached at Eds Britton. That is EDSBRITTON. Mike Tyson can be reached at capital MIKE, capital TYSON. The Hotboxin Podcast is at hotboxinpodcast.com. And yes, it was found on Laughable. It's also on YouTube, where it is listed with a apostrophe on the end. And before we go, indeed before I give my ending spiel, we're going to end tonight with our second burst of Durst from March 28th, 2019, Prime POTUS Pitch, in which our intrepid correspondent wiggles with excitement over the hurling of a horsehide.
Hey guys, Will Durst here to say forget the tulips, ignore the robin, do not let the hummingbirds, awakening bears, or egg-coloring kits on sale in the grocery store fool you. The date of the vernal equinox, which was a week or two ago, doesn't matter a whit, because the true beginning of spring is that bright and shiny day that baseball season starts. There's your rebirth, boys. The slate has been wiped clean, and anything is possible. This is next year. Although it seems the president might disagree with that sentiment. In lieu of throwing out the first pitch at the Nationals' home opener, Donald J. Trump encouraged his newly appointed Attorney General to throw out the First Amendment instead. Nobody knows why the Oval Office Oompa Loompa refuses to drive the 2.9 miles from the White House to Nationals Park. It's not like he has to do it every game. Once a year. That's what presidents do on opening day. Since William Howard Taft in 1910, 109 years ago. They don't call it the American pastime for nothing, you know. I bet if Vladimir Putin asked, he'd do it. Kim Jong-un? Oh yeah, sure. Hell, FDR did it from a wheelchair, for crumb's sake. It's not like he has a candy-ass arm, either. In 2004, he landed a Trump helicopter in the middle of center field and threw out the first pitch at a Somerset Patriots game, throwing a pretty damn good high fastball. Hell, if Curt Schilling had thrown that pitch, it would have been called a strike. Is President Snowflake afraid fans are going to boo him? Everybody likes baseball. Even ogres and trolls and troglodytes like baseball. And yes, that includes George Will. On this end, we're picking the San Francisco Giants to go all the way. Hey, a guy can dream, can't he? For Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, I'm Will Durst. Play ball!
Go to willdurst.com, that is WILLDURST, to find the Will Durst Journal, which is comedy for people who read or know somebody who does. And you can reach out to him on Twitter, @Will Durst.
Right? Right.
And there it went. One more episode of Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, in the archive at www.succotashshow.com, where you can hear past episodes of the show featuring original host, now executive producer Marc planting and tending to the crops that would grow to yield this current and also aforementioned soundcast. I'd like to again thank Darren Staley and Dylan Brody of Dylan Brody's Neighbors Couch Revisited, or DBNCR as I will think of it from here on out, and Charles Disney of Not a Huge Fan for taking time out of their day to send me content to help a fellow soundcaster out. It's a pretty big deal and I appreciate it. Well, it's late, or at least it was when I wrote this, and I must try to capture sleep when I can. I apologize if some of these recent episodes have been more than 2 weeks apart, as was my original goal. My current goal is to have episodes for you that post 2 weeks apart when it works out that way. At any rate, I'll shoot for more often than not. I do enjoy making this program, and I appreciate your kindness, patience, and support. Thank you again for listening, and if I could, might I intrude upon your kindness the teensiest bit more and ask you to please pass the Succotash?
You've been listening to Succotash Clips, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast with your host, Tyson Saner. Brought to you by Henderson's Pants and...
Imagine your company's name right here.
Find us on the web at succotashshow.com, on iTunes, on Stitcher Smart Radio, on SoundCloud, on YouTube, on Dunder, on Blitzen, on iHeartRadio, and on a Laughable app. You can hear us streaming and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Succotash Show. Email us at TysonSaner@succotashshow.com. Or call into the Succotash hotline at our toll call number, 818-921-7212.
That number again is 818-921-7212.
You can also upload clips from your favorite comedy soundcasts directly to us by using our direct upload link at hightail.com/u/Succotash. Production of Succotash is overseen by Joe Paulino through the auspices of Studio P. Sausalito, hosted by Tyson Saner. Our executive producer is Marc Hershon. Our musical director is Scott Carvey. Our booth assistant is Kenny Durges. Until next time, I'm your loyal booth announcer, Bill Haywatt, reminding you to please pass the Succotash. Goodbye.